Welcome back to System Prompt. Peter's episode number 22. Don't gotta go too crazy, but still pretty impressive.
Yeah. Let's keep going, man. Keep
My
going.
name is Val,
And I'm Peter.
and thanks for joining us. We are at episode number 22, firmly in the 1%. Just want to throw that out there. I'm pretty excited about that. But we got a good one today. And we got to talk about it, Peter. We got to talk about why China is winning the AI race.
I mean,
And
we basically labeled this to piss you guys off so you guys will watch it and see. But it's also true, right?
I mean, have you ever seen somebody in a fight knock somebody out with a jab?
It-
This is what it feels like. A well
yeah,
placed jab right on the chin, and you're like, "Wow, how did he drop from that?" It was a well placed jab, and this is what China has done to many of these U.S. based models. A well placed jab right on the chin, sat
and
them right on
and
their butt.
yeah, and I think the interesting part about it for our viewers specifically is that they're going to assume that we're talking about like Kimmy K. They're going to assume that we're talking about the Qwen 3.8, 2.4 trillion parameter model or the GLM 5.3 model that just came out. That's actually mythos fable quality, especially in terms of cybersecurity. But we're not, right? That's not the direction we're going to go here. We're here today to talk about Qwen 3.8, the 27 billion parameter model that people are comparing to Opus 4.6.
You know what I just thought of? Bruce Lee's 1 inch punch. That's Quen. Bruce Lee's
Yeah,
1 inch punch. It doesn't seem like he'll pack a punch because it's 1 inch away. But man, when he hits you with it, he sends you flying.
yeah, yeah. It's it's absolutely insane when people are when you're looking at some of these head-to-head results on Quen and 27 billion parameter model to Opus 4.6, the actual last Opus that people didn't complain about because 4.7, 4.8, and 5 has been a mess for them. But let's highlight, right? Why is a 27 billion parameter model the one that we're focusing on? Is that for prosumers, you can have this running on your workstation with a 3090, an A4500. I mean, you can have it running on something smaller with 16 gigabyte of VRAM too. I mean, you're gonna have to quantize it a little bit more aggressively, going like maybe Q2, Q3. But I mean, what you're getting out of a 27 billion parameter model is absolutely insane. Uh, and that's what it looks like when you just go ahead, you Google it. Qwen 3.8, 27 billion versus Opus 4.6, right? So LM stats. You like LM stats, right?
Me gusto, brother. I'm a
You
fan.
like LM stats. So let's look at what LM stats has right here for it. The verdict. Claude Opus 4.6 versus Qwen 3.8, 27 billion parameter model. Which one is better?
And we got to remember, families were fed off of Opus 4.6, man. Meals were put on the table for that with
Yeah,
that model.
absolutely. And we know the GPQA is sort of looks like it's reasoning. Look, it's 2 points. It's beating it in the Charksiv. Humanities lacks exam. It's not doing as great in, but that's where you would expect it to kind of. Here, it's kind of beating it in chat audio. But look at this. Look how solid this is, just across the board.
The fact that we got to be honest here. The fact that it's even in the same ballpark is mind boggling. It's mind boggling. The fact that we're even making this comparison and it's not followed by LOL is mind boggling to me. I'm very rarely impressed. This is impressive. What it could do, its use case, but it really kind of it puts a bow on everything we've been talking about since we started this podcast. If you
Yeah.
want to go local and you want to do meaningful work with AI, with the proper harness and a model like this, that can be done. If security is an issue, if privacy is an issue, if all these, even if it's not, but if that is the case, this is a real viable option
Yeah.
to be knee deep in working with AI and provide meaningful work for whatever your task may be.
I mean, it's just look. You don't even have to create your own harness for this. It runs fantastic in PyCode. You can set it to run in Hermes. I would kind of stay away from OpenClaw just because I don't really love OpenClaw in general. But when you're thinking about work-related tasks and you're thinking about good enough intelligence, and you're thinking about all of a sudden this 27 billion parameter model can is good enough intelligence for you to run on. Well, what does that mean exactly, right? Well, we talked last episode about a bunch of different kind of evals, and what we have to highlight is that this model can do that if you put it in PyCode, which is a tiny harness that you can install and just point it to the model. You can have it generate and create its own tools for it. Not only that, you can also, let's say you're in a situation where you need comparative analysis, you need to create a tool that fixes a CSV, you need a tool that can connect multiple MCPs. Now, all of a sudden, this 27 billion parameter model can do that for you, can create that deterministic pathway for you. And that's absolutely insane. Like, I don't think people have really grasped that if we have a 27 billion parameter model that can match Opus 4.6, that means prosumers are 6 months behind the frontier.
Yeah,
And we're not,
I mean, it's mind boggling. It's almost as if we are in a parallel universe talking about this because it's hard to believe, man, but we're here and it's happening. It's out now. This is not something that's on the horizon. This is not a theoretical model. It's out
yeah,
now, and you can use it and you can see it for yourself. Its ability to reason, its ability to 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 execute complex tasks and work through a solid workflow where it comes to these conclusions like a frontier model is nothing short of impressive.
and I have it spun up in a PyCode instance right now. So for the sake of the pod, and for the sake of putting our money where their mouths are, let's see if we can specifically ask it to do something and demonstrate what it can do in a PyCode harness, right? Because why just talk the talk? We can walk the walk also. So let's say we want to build a comparative analysis program leveraging you, um, connecting to multiple CSVs and or MCPs. Uh, let's go over options and see how we can get this done. Right?
This
So
isn't sped up. Peter's just a really fast typer. So just in case anybody thinks this is we didn't 1.5 or 2x this is happening in real time. The keys are smoking right now. I can't see it on camera though.
well, this is yeah. Some people say they talk faster than they type. I'm not one of those people. Actually, my thoughts are clearer when I type than when I actually speak.
It's
Sometimes
on
I
record
talk a
right
little
now.
faster. Yeah, but whatever. It is what it is. My ADHD addled brain. All right, we can we can take it easy on it, right? But as you see here, right, it's identifying that the user wants to build a program for comparative analysis that leverages PyCoding agent me connected to multiple MCPs. They want to discuss options for how to accomplish this. Let me think about what is going to be useful here. Let me read a relevant pie. I don't want to sit here and actually read this, but you sit here and you're seeing it go through Oh, yeah. Well, the problem is that DuckDuckGo has decided that my IP address is not the best. So it saw that, right? Because I've been kind of attacking the DuckDuckGo, which kind of sucks, but I got to let it chill for a little bit. So, but what was really cool here is that it recovered on it. It saw the web search. It was like DuckDuckGo blocked the request. Let's go another route. So it went straight into a specific curl. There's no specific pipe package MCP, just general MCP packages, in other words. So now it's going to go and it's going to try to figure out what it should do in order to actually build this. Now, this is a 27 billion parameter model, and right now it's running on medium. Just to give you an idea of what thing, right? Now it's going through the rigor of this. It's going through this. Yeah, ignore that I got blocked from DuckDuckGo for a second because I forgot to add rate limiting to something. That's always something that's good to remember. So now I'm gonna have to sit there and make sure that my IP reputation is salvaged by not attacking it anymore. So I'll have to change that. Anyway, but look, right?
This is impressive, man.
Uh, no built-in MCP. Pi's philosophy is build it as an extension instead. CSV needing no connectors at all. 4 ways to leverage me interactive sessions. CLI one-shot extensions. Option A, plain agent workflow, zero core to start today. Drop in CSVs in a folder. Tell me the analysis spec. I can compare them. Option B, analysis extension with structured tools. Deterministic core, CSV file paths. I, the LLM, become the orchestrator. MCP bridge extensions. SDK embedded programs, recommendation, go with option A. Uh, I mean, this is a 27 billion parameter model that can just sit here and just reason across this. And I mean, look, is it's not as impressive. Let's go with option A, build that out. We need to create test data and present this in a working form. Just all right.
And as I look at this, and I'm like, what is it good at? Um, well, we're seeing some of that in real time right now. We've covered Quinn on some benchmarks with coding. What you're seeing right now is the tool usage, um, long context analysis. Like it's checking these boxes as a 27 billion parameter model. Um, like it makes me think, what are these guys going to do a year from now when this model is maybe 3 or 4 times as good? Um, and devices get cheaper. Better devices come out that allow models to get hosted locally, more efficiently. Like what happens to the frontier as these models get better? And what do the what happens to the average person using AI that has these devices? Like what does that market start to look like? Because if I was a frontier model provider outside of somebody like maybe Google or Microsoft, I would even maybe put Cursor in there, XAI. What do you do, man? Because I would be nervous.
I mean, when you start having a 27 billion parameter model become something that you can use every day as your main driver, you run into problems. Right now, if you're Google, if you're Microsoft, even if you're OpenAI to a degree, I wouldn't be as worried because OpenAI has a lot of government contracts. Now, the one that I feel has the biggest, and we've covered this before. I think Anthropic's moat is shrinking because the only thing Anthropic has that had people flock to them were, we have the best models, Anthropic, right? Now they have the best models, but they also have the most expensive models. Now a lot of people are starting to gauge it per task. How much does it cost per task to actually use Anthropic? How long per task? right? How many? What's the actual cost? Now, the problem with that is the same thing that we highlighted in previous episodes, is that if people are already getting assigned hardware from businesses, and you run into a situation where a 27 billion parameter model is actually good enough. So you don't. This means, let's say your business decides that you're going to be doing M5s. You'll be buying M5s. You don't need to get 128 billion parameter, 128 billion, 128 billion gigabyte unified RAM M5 anymore to run this. You can get the 42 gigabyte.
I mean, these are real conversations. You know,
Yeah,
I did a little bit of research, and you know, when we're talking about the prices of some of the devices you're talking about in the $2,000 to $4,000 range, you know, if you go and search how much a high end compact Presario cost in the late '90s, early 2000s, it was around $2,100, dude. Right as the internet was starting to form, yeah, it was on the tail end of, or the beginning of, and followed through the tail end of the dot com bubble, which some people feel like we're in an AI bubble now, but the internet bet was right. And people who thought that it was a fad or thought that it would come and go or society wouldn't change, um, didn't think to invest in a personal computer. And other people thought that $2,100 was a worthy investment. So while we hear about these large numbers being thrown around for these devices, this is actually right on par with the way it used to be. So companies spending $2,500 for these devices that have the necessary RAM are now saying, "Oh shoot, we can run Qwen right on these devices."
yeah. And if you're spending $1,200, if you're spending $1,200 on a laptop per person, all of a sudden your new cost becomes $2,500 per person. But then you don't need to get them an external AI account. You can just have them run it locally from their machine, and that will run regardless of internet connection. Uh, you just need to have look. Is there hurdles attached to that? Absolutely. Is it? Is the complexity there? Yes, because you have to find a way to integrate this model into everything this person does the same way some of these like Microsoft's Copilot, or you know, the way that Claude has all these connectors, ChatGPT has all these connectors. You need to kind of leverage the same kind of thing to for this Qwen model to be able to integrate it into everything these people are doing. But all of a sudden your reliance on frontier models is greatly reduced. Now we could now imagine, instead of, you just have a PyCode harness that people can use, leverage the model, and then it could build out capabilities. Right now, it's running through test. It just created a bunch of different CSVs for this test, and it's going to keep going. Right? You see, look, and
Well,
it's even say, look, it found an issue that, oops, I left a weird line in the pick date, says equals. Let me change this.
but
So it's even
let's keep going down this rabbit hole because I'm super interested. Okay, let's say you are a company and you're saying, hey, we have the budget. Instead of spending $1,200, we're going to spend 25. Maybe you negotiate and you get it down to 2,300. The devices you get for your team now can handle Qwen. What can this enable for a team?
well, one of the things we're doing right now, right? Comparative analysis based on CSVs. A messy, it can clean up messy data. I mean, look, obviously, and you can tell it things that you want it to do, right? So if you want to touch this, but always make a redundancy, right, to make sure that things aren't, or create synthetic data so we can test comparative analysis. You can be more specific, right? Because I was kind of vague when it said when I was telling it create this, but it's gonna imagine a situation where you can use your local model to just kind of leverage it to do these things, right? So instead of having like Power BI, instead of sitting there and trying to to sit there and Excel foo your way into a lot of these things that are extremely time consuming. You can do you can do this, you can direct it, and it can sit there and work. And while this is sitting there and working, I can focus my time on something else that I need to do.
So definitely you believe it can handle coding.
Yes,
Could it be, is it good enough to be a internal business assistant?
I think
Could it be?
so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And I think we're gonna. This is. I mean, look, it takes a little while to get there, but I mean, we told it to. We're building out capability as we are having this discussion here, and you're going to be able to see this capability before we end this episode. Um, and it's just going to sit here and run. So you have the context right here. So it has 657,000 tokens in, 14,000 tokens out. It's only used about 20% of its context, and we're gonna keep diving in. It's gonna keep going. Um, I've been continually impressed by what this model is able to do, what it's able to find, what it's able to correct itself on. Is it perfect? You should see a lot of people take my hype and they go, "Oh, you think this is some sort of like perfect model that it can do it?" No, I don't. But I think if you have a domain expert and you're part of a company and you're a finance expert or you're an operations expert and you can direct it the way that you would direct an employee to go do something, now it's taking something off your hands that right, you're still managing it, you're still directing it, you're still in control of what goes on. You still have to review its output as you would with any other employee. Nobody's saying that this is just going to be some autonomous oh my god, a 27 billion parameter model can match an employee. No, that's not what I'm saying. What it can do, it's good at tasks, and it'll sit there and run a task until it's completed. Is it going to be the most efficient? No. Does it matter that it's not the most efficient? Not necessarily. Now, again, generally when I'm working with a model this size, spec matters. So if you can come up with a really good spec for it to follow, it's going to be able to execute really well. And then you could turn thinking on low as opposed to medium, because you don't need to think about something, the spec has already been built. Because right now it has to reason through that, right? It has to reason through the spec. It has to kind of build it out. So it's making some design choices. It's going this way. It's going that way. It's running tests. It's seeing value errors. Uh, and you see it just kind of working, just kind of operating, and it's going to keep going. Uh,
I mean, and you could always still route to a frontier model if
yeah.
the work becomes ambiguous, but you're only doing it on demand. You're not. This is not the primary way to. You're not using the frontier models to check emails. You're using it once the work gets too ambiguous, which is how this should work.
So there's a library, and it's called Tmux, right? Which enables you to programmatically go into a terminal session. Now imagine that terminal session as a Claude Code session. Now imagine you can leverage your 27 billion parameter model, so when it needs help, it can go to the right folder, it can spin up a terminal session, call on Claude, and say, "Hey, this is what we need help with. We're running into walls." That's not an API call. That can use your existing subscription, running a specific library, and reducing cost. Now, here's the issue, especially when it comes to like an enterprise. Do you know? Are you familiar with the Claude Code tiers, subscription tiers?
Yeah, I think what is it? It's 20, 100, 200 enterprise.
Or there's business and then there's enterprise. So we're going to focus
Okay.
on the two things, business and enterprise, the way that we're having this discussion right now. Business gives you seats for $20, right?
Yeah.
$20, $100, whatever it is. It allows you some, but the problem is it doesn't give you the granular control that you would want in an actual enterprise setting. That's business. Enterprise costs you $20 for access to enterprise at all, period. Doesn't include any usage. Any usage on the enterprise tier is rated usage, is measured metered usage. Any of it. The chat, any conversations, all of it is metered. Now, if you have something like this that a company can create policy around and roll out, it's going to be significantly cheaper than their Claude Enterprise account.
Yeah, I mean, and you're not talking about just push this thing into the wild. You're gonna go. The IT team is gonna do what the IT team does. You know, they're gonna put the parameters there. They're gonna make sure that all the security parameters are there. You know, scrubbing PII, all the same security stuff that you're gonna. Nobody's just gonna do push this thing out willy nilly, because that's what you would never do that with any sort of software. The team is going to know how to use it. Same protocols are still going to be met. The only difference is that this is being housed internally, or at least is not exposed to the world at a fraction of the cost. But then, okay, we've glammed this up. We've talked about this. We talked about how great it is. Where don't you want to use Qwen? Where what
I
are its
mean,
limitations?
I think that it has an impressive amount of reasoning ability, but I'd want to use it more as an executor as opposed to a heavy thinker, so to speak. Because you can hand it a spec that you can work. Let's say you have a $200 Claude account. Now all of a sudden you've reduced that need to $100 Claude account. You're building specs with Claude. You're handing it to Qwen to actually do. Now Qwen doesn't actually have to think about what it needs to do. It already has those details listed. Now it can do what it does best, and that's go out and execute. It can execute. It can run long horizon tasks. Now, obviously, based on what we're looking at here, it could sit there and reason across what it's doing, also, but it's not going to be as good as at that as a frontier model, and it's going to probably use up a lot more tokens than a frontier model would to get to the same kind of conclusion. But as an executor, it's going to and the evals that we ran prior to this, when we were measuring, proves this. As an executor, it's absolutely fantastic and it's efficient as hell. But that works when the task is unambiguous. If it's an ambiguous task, then you need to leverage some reasoning. Now, it can leverage reasoning, like I said, but that's not where its strengths are. Its strengths are in its ability to kind of execute what you tell it to do.
Okay. But so, what are your thoughts on, and we're spitballing this here, but people are used to using Claude for a bunch of different things: writing, research, maybe some math problems, image gen, video gen. Maybe not Claude specifically. What are your thoughts on that for people who are expecting the same thing one for one with Qwen and using Claude?
oh, oh man. Okay. Here's the thing: a lot of people use the best model available to get their answer, when their answer can come from something like Haiku or Qwen a lot faster and the same quality. The task. The problem is nobody really understands, and this goes for me, probably you, and everybody else out there. What constitute a task that needs heavy reasoning? What does that look like? What does that actually mean? A lot of it is very varied. So you're sitting there and you're like, that's right. What does that mean, right? And in a lot of situations, the same things that you're using Claude for, Qwen can do just fine, right? Uh, and in a lot of other situations, if you're leveraging Fable to do something that's very complex, Qwen is not going to be able to do that. But what you can do is have Fable 5 come up with the spec of what exactly it needs to do, and then you can leverage Qwen as your executor, and that makes the whole pipeline just cheaper for you to run. So I wouldn't think of it in terms of completely eliminating your reliance, right? So a lot of people confuse this. I wouldn't eliminate your reliance on Frontier. I'd reduce your reliance on Frontier. Reducing your reliance on Frontier reduces your cost overhead, right? On what it is you're going to be spending. Because if you have allotted for 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 a month, whatever, what have you, on Frontier level knowledge, and now you're able to come in a little bit under because all of a sudden you have Frontier like knowledge running locally on your machine, and all of these people can just sit there and go, oh wow, this actually worked for exactly what I needed to do.
So Qwen don't want it Qwen generating an image for you, but Qwen can route to an image gen model that could generate an image for you. And with Qwen being that orchestrator, it would be cheaper than if Fable 5 was doing the heavy lifting to execute the same task.
Yeah. So right now it says, okay, option A is built, make test data, we seeded, test data inputs never mutated during analysis. The full report exec summary data quality is here. Uh, and I'm just telling you, okay, just bring it to the screen. Let me see if I can find it here. Where are you? But I think that, look, I think the key here is that you can just go out and you can build things that are just absolutely fantastic now. And I think your cost per token is going to get driven down substantially. I mean, I don't understand how frontier models. I mean, look what OpenAI just did. It made Terra almost free across the board for free users. Did you see that?
Yeah, very impressive. And I've actually been using Terra a lot because it's like I think it's $1.20 million token output.
Yeah.
Input is like 20 cents or something like that. It's a good model. I've actually been bouncing between that and GLM 5.2, although I haven't tested out 5.3 yet. Heard some good things about it.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'm going to be testing that this week. It's just so many models to keep up with. So when I'm testing, I want to really get my hands dirty. But I've been using Terra a lot, and it's a solid model, dude. Very solid model. So for me, I'm thinking about running local, Qwen as the workhorse, and then I route to a model like Terra. And I got everything covered, man. Like I got a lot of tasks covered for almost nothing. You know, and I can have that thing run for a long time if I need to. I can have Terra run in the cloud offline uh, to handle complex tasks, or I could have Quen run locally for tasks, and I have everything covered, and I have a frontier model, probably top 15, top 20 on many tasks, on many benchmarks, and and I can trust that the output that I'm getting is in line with if I were to have the best in the business running at a fraction of the cost, dude.
I mean, it's OpenAI sees the writing on the wall, which is why they did what they did with Terra. They want to make sure that they wrote people into their usage. Um, the only one that seems to be just kind of hanging out there is Anthropic, right? I expected Anthropic to do something, especially with all these open source releases, especially when you're seeing a lot of these something like the 27 billion parameter model um, being released for prosumers that they can all really just jump in and use, right? Um, and I'm scrolling on LinkedIn and I'm looking at Facebook and I'm looking at all um, HN and Reddit, and people are just losing their objective minds over what this model can actually do, and they're taking their usage completely off the cloud altogether, and they're going, I can do everything I need to do locally. I don't need them anymore.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't even talked about Grok. I've used Grok, man. Also impressive. So it looks like, it feels like these models have pinned Anthropic into a corner. And I'm going to be a little maybe controversial, maybe not. But like, what are the options that Anthropic has now? Still great models, but the next release either has to be at a fraction of the cost and still frontier, or they're gonna have to drum up some controversy, man. They're gonna have to do something shady, some sort of catastrophic event, God forbid, is gonna have to happen, where they can say, "Hey, look, this is why we don't. This is why we should ban these open source models, so they can go and try to recapture the market." But if they come out with another model, Fable 5.5 or Fable 6, and that thing is 60 bucks million output, they, they're toast, man. You
But I
know,
mean, they already have an out, right? They've given themselves kind of an out with the whole, like, if you have a max plan, you have access to Fable, but you can only use 50% of your weekly budget on Fable, only 50%. So they can just turn the dial and make that 100%, and they can give people more access to Fable now without it really costing them very much, right? Um, Outside of just more inference. But I imagine, um, I don't know how negligible that would be for them specifically, but that's a tune that they can dial, right? That can at least create some stickiness for them. But I struggle, like, if I don't need to use something like Fable, but to build specs, do I care how much usage I have to it week to week?
I mean, but their bread is buttered on the enterprise level. Is that still going to count? Is that still going to apply to the API fees that they're going to be paying? These enterprise accounts.
Well, the problem with the enterprise accounts is that it works for them now because the enterprise accounts are annually contracted. So if a company right now went out and said, "Holy crap, there's a model that can do everything that we needed to do," they're still kind of beholden to Anthropic because they've made this annual commitment to Anthropic. Now you're not going to now. The dangerous thing is that you're not going to really see people's subscriptions drop off, right? Now, what you'll start to see first is that people's pipelines, people's workflows uses less and less Anthropic models until maybe it's just a small portion of their workflow specifically, and it'll move from being all Anthropic to being just a tiny portion is what Anthropic needs to do. Anthropic model needs to do. And that's what I mean by kind of reducing their reliance. I mean, a lot of people, like I said, a lot of people are saying that they're in a situation where they're moving completely off the cloud altogether. Do I think that's a great choice? No, I think the future is hybrid. I think the future is being able to leverage local models, and I think the future is being able to only route to frontier when it's absolutely necessary. When both the user and the model say, "Okay, we can't. There's nothing we can do here. We need to phone a friend."
Yeah, and that friend sounds like Grok, sounds like GPT, probably six. Sounds like GLM 5.4. Sounds like Kimi K4. Sounds it sounds like a lot of other models, and it's and the good thing is the consumer wins.
Yeah,
Um, the consumer wins. Who doesn't win? People who thought this AI thing was a fad. Because if the prices continue to drop and the models continue to get better, the easier it's going to be for these workflows to get integrated into businesses as the value proposition starts to make a lot more sense. Um, I'm for it, And by the way, I still love Anthropic. I still love Claude. Claude is still awesome. Their harness is amazing. Um, But I'm curious to see what their next move is, man. Um, the IPO is lingering. Um, I'm curious to see what the next move is. They're the hottest company, but man, it's like what's the saying? What a difference a day makes. We're still in 2026, and this is a lot of pieces that have moved around. You know,
Yeah, I think. Look, man, Anthropic really got a great head start, right? Anthropic got a fantastic head start. They have they have fantastic models, right? All those things are true. All those things are true. Um, but just because you got a fantastic head start doesn't mean you're winning the race. Because this is a marathon. This isn't a sprint, right? Um, I,
yeah. I mean,
I'm kind of excited to show this to you.
Met,
Okay.
Meta's joining the party. At some point in time, Google's gonna have to get their act together. They're too big. They're too many resources. You know, they started off hot. They cooled down significantly, but you can't count them out. You can't count them out. They're not there yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're currently getting their act together and they come out back in the mix with a really great model. And this is all of this is not good. Now, what are we looking at here?
This is the comparative. Remember, we created the comparative
Yeah,
analysis tool. This is it. This
this
was the
is.
this was the culmination of that tool. 4 quarters, order line files, 5,903 raw rows, product catalog reference, all figures on deduplicated normalized data set. This is what Qwen decided on based on things that I did. Now, look, before people go, oh wow, that's impressive, that's cool, understand, I made this, all this cost was electricity. We would want to Q&A this. We would want to confirm that these things are actually true. Obviously, those things exist. Those needs exist. But the model did those checks and balances. You can go back and check that the model did those checks and balances. Anyway, and it tells you here the data quality. Right here. 3 remove via dedupe, 1 case normalized for aggregation, 8 buckets notice unknown, 5 excluded from sums minor impact, missing revenue from Q4.
I mean, like with any agent harness, you're gonna have to go in and refine this pipeline. But the fact that a 27 billion parameter model is able to spit this out.
Right?
I
Not only
mean,
that, but it was able to leverage Matplotlib and actually create graphs based on what it is we're looking at.
saying, man, if, this is it's impressive. It's impressive. One shot, very little context. It's impressive, man. This is
Yeah,
where we are, guys.
I was sitting by myself in my room, after, after I finished evaling this against DeepSeek V4 Flash, right? Which is a 285 billion parameter model, but it's only about, I believe it's 13 billion active parameters. Now, that's an important thing to remember. Qwen 3.8, 27 billion parameter model is a dense model. Now, we're going to end it on just kind of an understanding note here. Now, dense models are going to use all of the 27 billion parameter model, all the 27 billion parameters, versus DeepSeek's only using 13 billion parameters per request. I think out of like 6 experts. So when people were losing their minds going, I was like, Qwen won in a head to head. You have to understand that DeepSeek is only using 13 billion active parameters versus Qwen always using 27 billion active parameters. Now, this has been the case in long running that why dense models are better than mixture of experts models. because of the active parameters when you're actually using a request. The mixture of expert models are always faster because they're smaller. You're not getting 285 billion parameter model, 85 billion parameters when you're asking DeepSeek for task specific items. You're getting 13. For Qwen, you're always getting 27. So
Yeah, and
that's
it runs a little. It took some time, but I mean, hey, man, for
well, it took some time to build the capability. So now it has the capability. So now all I need to do is give it data, and now it can just run this.
yeah. I, the question is, was that time worth it? Absolutely. I mean, bro, you did this in the span of a podcast. This wasn't. We we probably should be planning these things a lot better. But this is welcome to system prompt. This is how we get down, guys. This is real time. This is what you saw all happen in real time. Why? Because you're getting our honest reaction, and this is just it just so happened we weren't really sure this thing was gonna finish by the time we finished the podcast, and
I
if
was.
it didn't,
I
we
was.
we were to cut off. Well, this is why we're doing it, and it worked out that way. So in the span of listening, in the span of listening to this same podcast on your own time, this is what could be done locally with the 27 billion parameter model that delivers a one inch punch straight to the sternum.
Now, you were talking about what kind of business capability where it can run comparative analysis. What does that mean? That means you might not need to leverage Power BI. It can save you a few bucks on Power BI, which means not only the cost of the laptop that you have, but maybe the cost of the analytic tools that you currently are using, you could now kind of move away from. And if you trust this enough, and if you see that it can build out the capability, it can take control of some of those tasks for you. Um, and what a time to be alive! I mean, look, we've been screaming from the rooftops for anybody that'll listen that local is going to be the way of the future, um, and that on-prem or capability on your desk is going to be what kind of moves us along. I mean, think about how unpopular data centers are. Think about how unpopular data centers are. Think about what we're getting released that can rival data center usage. We're getting NVIDIA RTX laptop, M5's already out, DGX Spark's already out, AMD equivalents already out, devices with unified memory that are varied that people are just running already out. People are using them. And now you have a model that's small enough to fit on almost everything that uh, can you fit this on a 16 gigabyte RAM unified memory Mac Mini? You're gonna have to aggressively quantize it, or get a heavily quantized version. But yeah, your issue with having a 16 gigabyte Mac Mini is going to be that your OS is going to be taking up a bunch of your RAM as well. Um, so you think it's going to take what, maybe 3 to 6 gigabytes of RAM your OS, so it's going to leave you with like 8 to 10 gigabytes to work with. Uh, and you want at least 16, 17 for this model to actually run efficiently. So I would say go 32, go 48,
Yeah.
go into that realm to give you some of that buffer room. Because I'll give you an example. Right now, I run it. I use SG Lang as my runtime. I run an NV FP4 checkpoint, and I can give it. And I have native MTP, which is multi-text prediction, which is basically like a model in front of the model. So multi-text multi-token prediction is basically when you have a smaller model in front of the bigger model, and it predicts what the next token might be. So let's say it'll spit out 8 possibilities of what the next token, and the model will actually select which ones it is. So out of 8 tokens, you might get like 3 to 4 acceptance rate, and then right, and this will speed up the process. Because it's a dense model, it'd be pretty slow running on a DGX Spark specifically. I'd probably be getting somewhere in the vicinity between 10 and 12 tokens per second. Instead, I'm getting between 20 and 30 because I'm running multi-token prediction. Just to give you a well-rounded view.
Impressive, man. It's impressive. And from the time we first mentioned it It only took 22 episodes for us to get to this point. It only took 22 episodes for us to kind of show how the magic actually happens. Um, and I'm curious to see what happens in 22 more episodes. What we'll be able to produce, the kind of value that can be brought to you know AI builders, small businesses, uh, law firms, insurance. A lot of these guys that are trying to figure out how to maximize and leverage AI while still remaining compliant across the board. Um, I think there's going to be a run in the medical field. Um, Now, whether it should or shouldn't happen, that's another conversation for another day. But is it possible? Sooner than many people expect.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to
Yeah.
thank you guys for joining us on System Prompt, and we're trying, we're trying some things out here, going through the motions, having a 27 billion parameter build capability right in front of you to see how long it actually took to do it, see what the output actually looked like, understand the rigor that it took to actually get to that endpoint, and have an understanding that we're still early, right? We're still early in AI. This is, if you're talking about Gen AI, you're talking about what, 4 years that roughly it's been out. When you're talking about highly leveraged agentic coding, and you're thinking about things like Claude Code and things like JetBrains and a bunch of the other services, those are even less. You're talking like three three
Yeah.
years,
Almost 2 years,
2 years.
really, where
Yeah.
it was significant. A year
Um,
when they really started to turn.
you're seeing model architecture shrink to a point where 27 billion parameters is useful, and that's kind of the tone and the direction we're taking with this specific episode. Um, but look at what you can do now with these, and look what I did only with the model in PyCode, not some over aggressive harness, not something that I had to build myself. I put it in PyCode. I told it to create tools for itself. It created a web fetch, a web search, created a design tool for itself, and now it created a comparative analysis capability that it can run. All I got to do is feed it data. So I mean, if you can do that locally, what are we paying frontier models to do at this point? I think that's a question we all need to ask ourselves. I know where it fits for my workflow, but where does it fit for your workflow? Have you tried using some of these smaller parameter models? Does it have the same quality that you'd be expecting some of these frontier models to have? And I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised with the answers to that question.
There you have it, folks. There you have it.
We'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope you didn't get too angry about the title, but it is what it is.
Take care, guys.